So what would be a good organ to draw for parasympathetic? If it's rest and digest?
The heart or the stomach.
So let's draw the stomach. There's my banana-shaped stomach.
Perfect.
On my stomach, I have receptors, just like this muscle had receptors. What's this receptor's name?
Muscarinic.
Yep. Does that make more sense? Seeing kind of, it's actually a receptor on something?
Yeah, that does make more sense.
Perfect.
A lot more sense. Okay. So that's the receptor, so then...
Yep, and that's where acetylcholine would then bind to.
Okay. And then... So that's muscarinic. So muscarinic is with the parasympathetic. Okay. And then nicotinic is for both, for the acetylcholine.
Right.
The preganglion connects to the postganglion.
Right.
Okay. What was the other one called?
And this one is going to have a specific one for the heart, a specific one for the lungs, and a specific one for your arteries, sweat glands, and your urethra.
Okay.
So these all had little receptors on them. This one was a beta 1.
This is beta 2.
Awesome. And alpha 1.
Alpha.
We don't worry about alpha 2 for this class. I remember is we have one heart, beta 1. We have 2 lungs, beta 2. It's also beta 2 are on your eyes.
Okay.
You can have beta 2 receptors as well.
2 lungs, 2 eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. And then alpha 1, just remember, because it's everything else.
Yeah, it basically is everything else. Yep.
For our purposes, it's everything else.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So then, when he was talking in class, he talked about like, if you were to do this.
Can I activate it?
Activate it.
Oh.
Yes, activate it all, and it was to open up this gate. This is a voltage.
It's not really a gate. It's just a receptor.
It's just like, okay, so like activates this receptor. Would your heart go faster or slower?
Okay,
right?
so the agonist and antagonist?
Yes.
Okay, so we have, do you know like plays or do you ever do drama?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so an agonist is what? It's kind of always the hero,
Right.
the good guy or something. And then we have an
Antagonist. So the antagonist is what stops it or like inhibits it.
Yep, so it's going to do the opposite.
And then agonist.
It's kind of like the normal function. So we should probably actually opposite isn't even actually always bad. Sometimes it's a good thing.
Right.
But so yeah, forget that. We should probably know what the normal function is to begin with, right?
Right.
Before going into all that. So let's drop fight or flight, right? So if I was to do activate a sympathetic, so let's say a murderer comes in here and he has a gun and he's holding it to our heads, we're going to activate sympathetic, right? So we're going to go, norepinephrine is going to come bind to this receptor. What is it going to do to the heart? And think about it. If someone was to come and put a gun to my head, would your heart rate increase or decrease? Increase. We'd be like, okay, a beta 1 agonist would have my heart increase. Normal function is to increase.
Like promotes it to go.
Right, so that's the normal function.
Okay.
Sympathetic, so once again, same guy comes in. What is he going to do, or what are my vessels going to do? It's kind of a harder one, but it's going to constrict.
Okay.
So my vessels, my blood vessels are all going to constrict. This is where it's important to know evens and odd numbers.
Okay.
So if it's an odd number, like 1,
It's excitatory.
right? But if it's an even number, like 2, perfect. So kind of think of everything naturally wants to go in, okay?
Okay.
So if it's odd number and it's excitatory, what are we going to do? Contract faster.
Okay.
If it's an odd number again and we have a vessel,
Wants to
it wants to contract, so we're going to vasoconstrict.
Okay.
We also have, let's say that's your urethra, so it connects your bladder to your outside body. And let's say we have an alpha 1 what is it going to do to the urethra? Contract. Hence why, because if we're trying to run away from our lives, we don't want to have to worry about urinating.
Right.
However, that does happen, but that's a reflex, so different thing, but we want to constrict.
Okay.
And then beta 2. So let's say lungs normally want to constrict, but we're going to do beta 2 inhibitory. So what are we going to do? We're going to bronchodilate. Why? Because if someone comes in here with a gun, we're going to want to be able to breathe and like run, right? So we want to fill our lungs so we can get away fast. Then think about what your eyes want to do. If he comes in, do you think, yeah, they're going to be like, deer in the headlights, like, oh no, right?
Right.
So they're going to dilate really big. So that's all the normal functions.
Okay.
Okay, now let's do parasympathetic. Parasympathetics rest and digest. So what are we doing right now? We're kind of just worried about digesting our food. We're doing peristalsis, which is kind of like the squishing.
Okay.
And like your intestines, like kind of like winding it, around to come out. So that's the normal function of your stomach is to mix, to turn, peristalsis, digest.
Okay.
So, knowing all their normal functions, and I think that's all you actually have to know, which seems like a lot at first, but if you kind of can think about it
Better
and
than I thought it was actually.
right, because if you can think about it in real life situations,
That makes.
it's not too bad. And I would suggest drawing these pictures
Okay.
because it's easier to draw these than to, when you see in the textbook, the lungs will then bronchodilate and the eyes will, it's
Yeah.
a lot to take in. But here it's kind of more basic.
Yeah.
So knowing that, if I said I was going to give you a beta 1 antagonist,
Okay.
what would happen in your body?
So beta 1 antagonist, that would be connected to the heart,
Mm-hmm.
which if it was an agonist make it beat faster, but an antagonist would make it slow down.
Perfect. The answer is heart rate slows down.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, what if I gave you a muscarinic antagonist?
A muscarinic antagonist. So your
Peristalsis.
paracelsus
Can we write that for you?
naturally just like wants to keep going. So if you gave it an antagonist, that would slow down the digestion, right?
Right. Yep, and you could also say, if I was to do any type of parasympathetic, so meaning a muscarinic antagonist, I'll start doing more of the sympathetic activities.
Okay. So anytime you're decreasing this, you're increasing it.
Right. It's dual innervation.
Okay.
So it's also important to note is that just because we drew a stomach up here for parasympathetic, we also want to keep in mind we do have some sympathetic fibers there too.
Okay.
We just have maybe one per, let's say like 300 parasympathetic ones.
Okay.
But yeah, so if anything's agonist, which is parasympathetic, think of it as, we're doing the opposite, so fight or flight.
Okay.
So let's say beta 2 agonist.
So beta 2 agonist works with the lungs and the eyes, and they naturally constrict. So if you were to do an agonist, it's just got complicated. This is the part where it's like, anyway, in my head, it's like complicated.
It's hard to think through.
So you have agonist, which would increase the constriction. Or would it increase? No, because oh no. It would
Light bulb.
It would make it so that you can breathe more because the beta 2 inhibits the constriction.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Perfect.
Woo.
So your lungs are gonna
Open up.
bronchodilate. There you go. Perfect.
Okay.
Ta-da! So it's not too bad.
Yeah, that's happy.
It's not too bad.
I understood.
Yay!
I've gone through that like 20 times in my head and like, it's not working.
You're like, this is so hard, but it's hard, or there's a lot of stuff, but it's easy if you can kind of really apply it to situations and say, okay, if someone was to come put a gun to my head, what am I going to want to be doing in my body? Probably going to want to increase my heart rate, natural things like that.
Okay. Great. Can I take a
Yay.
picture of this so I can
Yep, go for it. Oh, one more thing for alpha 1.
Uh-huh.
We'll just draw all the alpha 1 things up here.
Okay.
So we have alpha 1 is your urethra. It's going to constrict it because we're going to excite. Constrict urethra. Constrict blood vessels, so vasoconstriction. as well as you have increased generalized sweat and decreased local sweat. So kind of think of, in rest and digest, we have localized sweat. Kind of, your armpits, your palms, maybe your scalp, things like that. But if someone was to come in here, you're probably going to be sweating all over. You're like, oh man, generalized sweat, it's everywhere. So know that for Alpha 1 as well.